Okay. So yesterday we started with self-psychology and we answered the most important question in your life. That is, who are you? The reason why this question is so important is because if you can answer this question, then you can answer every other question and everything else makes sense, right? So we understood that you are Ruh, right? So you are Ruh and we negated everything else. So this is who you are, and then we negated everything else. We said you, not the body, not body, not mind, and not what is that? Not ego, right? So if you are not the body, you're not the mind, you're not the ego. Okay. So what is the body, the mind, and the ego? We went into the discussion of that. So we said the body is the physical you, right? And it has your senses, 5 senses. That's your physical body, right? It has your 5 senses: eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and touch. So then we discussed mind. What is the mind? The mind is whatever these 5 senses collect and pass the data on to is what is the mind. So the mind is a collection of whatever your 5 senses have collected, and that is the mind. And then the ego we said is whatever the mind has collected and formed a personality or a false you. False you. That is the ego. Okay. So ego is a collection of whatever the mind has collected. The mind is a collection of whatever the senses have collected. And the mind is inside the body. The body contains the brain. All right. So we said you are none of these things. We negated all and we said you are ruh. Then we went and discussed what is ruh, and we explained to you ruh is the breath of Allah now, and you are that breath. That is the real you, the real you. Okay. So now we understood that we are a spirit. Now, so if you are a spirit, the spirit is immortal and eternal. It always was, it is, and it always will be. Okay. So it's the breath of Allah, because Allah is always was, is, and will be. Whatever is manifested from Him always was, is, and will be. Okay. Now you might have a question like, okay, so then what's the difference between us and the creator, the source, right? What's the difference between you as a ruh and between the owner of the ruh, which is Allah? So that is the topic of discussion today. Right. So let's see if we can. So take a screenshot of this so I can move on to today's lesson. I took a screenshot. You can take a screenshot also so that before I wipe the board, you have this. Right, everyone took a screenshot. Let's see who we have today. We have a lot of students, very much. Everyone is here. So I'm going to erase the board and I'm going to write a new board. Now, Ruh, and I'm going to type on this other side. Source. Okay? So what is the link between this Ruh and the source where it came from? Right? The big question is the source, meaning the creator, Allah, right? Are you and him the same thing? Right? That's a question. Or is there any difference between you and the source? Right? That's the question we're going to discuss today. Now, I want you to have an open mind, and whatever I'm going to discuss is going to be a bit hard for you to grasp, but I want you to just bear with it and listen with an open mind, and inshallah, it will make sense. Okay? So, the Quran gives us a picture of where we came from, right? The Quran says, خلقكم من نفس واحدة ثم خلق منها زوجها. Whenever you see the word خلق being used in the Quran, you must know it's not talking about the ruh, it's always talking about the human body. Now if we go to another verse in the Quran, you find إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. This verse also is talking about the physical human body. Okay? So, Allah never uses khalaqa for ruh. Khalaqa is never used. Yeah? Always Allah uses nafakha. Nafakha. Right? So, when did this nafakh happen? Okay? We know that the source is eternal, ever-living, ever-existing, omnipotent, omnipresent. Eternal, ever-living, ever-existing, omnipotent, omnipresent. Always was, always will be, never changed, never changes, does not undergo any changes, was never created, right? Uncreated. And he is absolute. So that's why I use the term absolute to refer to Allah. We refer to him as absolute because he's the absolute, he's everything. Okay. Now, we are his breath. We are the breath of the absolute. What is the difference between us and him? That's the big question. The difference between the absolute, I'm going to use the highlighter here now. The difference between absolute and between ruh is the absolute has no beginning. Let me just type it here. No beginning. I don't know if my spelling is correct here, but no beginning. No beginning, right? Now the ruh here, the difference between you and source is you have a beginning. So the source, Allah, absolute, almighty, everlasting, ever existing, right? Omnipresent, omnipotent, absolute, no beginning. No beginning. So هو الأول والآخر. He is the first and the last. You have a beginning. That's what makes you different from source. So when was your beginning? The next question. Since you have a beginning, when was your beginning? Yeah? So the beginning is answered in the Quran. نعم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. So the ruh, in another word, it is the amr of Allah. You can say it is amr. You can say it is kun, right? So you can either say the ruh is the amr of Allah, or you can either say the ruh is kun. In other words, you can say the ruh is the word of Allah, as Allah speaks in the Quran, referring to Isa alayhi salam as the word. The word. So this word has a beginning. Right, where's the pen? So the word has a beginning. When did this beginning happen? When the Absolute decided that he wants to manifest himself in whichever way he felt suitable to his majesty, because the Quran says, إنما فعال لما يريد لا يسأل عما يفعل. You cannot ask the source why you're doing what you're doing, right? The source does whatever he wants. He is almighty and all powerful. So he decided at a time when he felt, I cannot say a time, at an instant where he felt that he wants to express himself and manifest himself. So he spoke and he said, kun, right? إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له kun فيكون. So he said kun, that word, or he just had a irada, an amr, that he decided something, and so it happened. So he intended something and he said kun, and there he was, the ruh came from his breath. So in the beginning, it was only in the beginning, there's no beginning here, no beginning, right? So it was only the Absolute. He decides he wants to manifest himself, and he uses the word kun, and the ruh is existent through his breath. Okay, now Um, what I was going to say was, yes, if you look in the Quran, Allah says, "Inna mathala Isa inda Allah kamathali Adam." The example of Isa alayhi salam, according to Allah, is like the same like the example of Adam, right? So what is the example? So Allah says, خَلَقَهُ مِن تُرَابٍ. Allah created Adam from dust, right? That's the physical human body. ثُمَّ قَالَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونَ. After the body was created, Allah said, kun. When He said kun, when He said the word kun, then what happened? Yakun happened. The ruh was blown into the physical body, and Adam alayhi salam came into existence. So, the difference between ruh and source is that source does not have a beginning, no beginning, was always there, is always there, will always be there. The ruh, me and you, our ruh, we had a beginning. Right? Now, one may argue and say that if you say we have a beginning, the absolute, his breath is also absolute, right? So if we are his breath, then since his breath did not have a beginning, we technically shouldn't also have a beginning. Okay? So you may say that, and you may put that forward as an argument. But that is overruled by the Amr. And the Amr is إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. So you may say you were always there as a ruh, you were always there, but you only became manifested when the word manifested you. So that is where you have a beginning. That's what decides you and makes you different from the source. Right? So take a screenshot of that so you understand what is being explained. And I'm going to erase the board to explain another point. So take a screenshot of that. And before I move on, has everyone understood the difference between ruh and source? Source being Allah, the creator, the absolute. So the difference between the ruh and the absolute, or the difference between nafkh and absolute. Right? So in reality, if you look, the ruh was always there, right? Only its manifestation had a beginning. So its manifestation, it became manifested when Allah decided to manifest it with the word kun, and so we had a beginning. Right. Right, everyone understood that? If yes, type yes. If any questions, type your question. Naim saying Naam. Okay, Alhamdulillah. If you understood that point, that's a very, very, very big leap that you have taken, because 99% of people don't understand what I'm just trying to explain. Musa is saying, I'm here. Okay, welcome, Musa. I see there's many students today, Alhamdulillah. So the thing is that if you weren't here for yesterday's lesson, you're not going to understand what is going on today, because everything that I'm speaking today is based on whatever I taught yesterday. So you see how important yesterday's lesson was? You cannot understand today's lesson without understanding yesterday's lesson, because it all carries on and is built on what I taught yesterday, right? So far, so good. Let's continue. So before I continue, I'm just going to highlight a few things here. So this is the source, the creator, the everlasting, the ever-existing, the ever-present, omnipresent, right? Omnipotent, all-powerful. Always was, always is, always will be. He does not change. Nothing changes in his that, right? His being. The Ruh, on the other hand, which is me and you, we have a beginning. We have a beginning. So although we are his breath, right? We are his nafkh, but this nafkh has an amr, and the amr is kun. And when he decided to say kun, that's when we came into a manifestation, right? So in reality, we were always there. We were there as part of his that. We were always there. But we had a beginning when he manifested us, when he said kun, and that's where our beginning came, right? The word kun he used, and that's when he blew the soul into Adam. And from the children of Adam, we are here today. We are here today. All right. Imran says, true Maulana, an example for that is in the Arsh of Allah, where where La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So the Ruh of the Prophet was there already, but the time was still to come. Yes, so the Ruh was always there. Now, so it was always there. So today I'm going to start Masnavi, and you're gonna understand why this background that I'm giving you right now was so important for you to understand Masnavi. All right? Because if you don't have this background, Masnavi will not make sense to you. Okay? So I'm going to be starting on Masnavi just now. But before I move on there, I just want you to grab this concept and this context very, very carefully and very properly. Now, right. So one thing I must say to you, what I have just explained to you, it has taken the scholars and the philosophers and the different scholars throughout history and theologians and all of those people to explain these things that I've explained to you today and yesterday. It has taken them over 1,000 years, and they have still not made any sense of it. Not 1,000 years, over 5,000 years, I can say, since the time of the Greeks till today, people are still trying to make sense of Ruh, source, and how does it all make sense? How does it all connect? How do all the dots connect? I have given you in, let's say, in 20, 30 minutes, the whole 5,000 years of arguments and 5,000 years of discussions and all that waste of time that people have gone into trying to explain these things in the most complicated of ways, whereas it is so simple. This is the source. He was always there, and this phone is why it's just my phone is doing its own things. Yeah. So this is the simple truth is the source was always there, absolute, no beginning, right? When he decided he wants to manifest himself, he gave an amr, and the amr was kun, and that created and manifested, not created, manifested the ruh, and the ruh was made nafkh, was blown into the human body, which is the khalq, and that's why we are here. We have a beginning, me and you. That's how we are here. That's how we came. That's how simple it is. Nothing complicated. So I've uncomplicated for you 5,000 years of unnecessary, discussions and arguments and debates and all of those things. I've just summarized it for you in this one simple drawing of a few lines and a few words. Okay? So take a screenshot of this and keep it safe, because this explains what the world has been trying to understand from the beginning until now, and they have not understood. Right. So with this background in mind, and with this understanding in mind, let's go to Masnavi, and let's see what Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi rahimahullah has to say. Now, before I go to Masnavi, I need to give you context of who is Maulana Rum and who is Rumi, and why Rumi is so important, and why is the Masnavi so important, and why I am so inclined towards him and towards his book, right? So I'm going to give you all the background of that and how the Masnavi will open up everything else for you, right? Okay. All right, so I'm going to erase this board, and we're going to go to Masnavi. Before I go to Masnavi, if you have any questions, you can ask. You can type in the chat. I'll give you a minute. Right, so now I'm going to open up Masnavi for you. I'll send you the PDF after the lesson, inshallah. But you can find this, masnavi.net. Just go to masnavi.net and you will find this. So a little bit background about the Masnavi. It's written in Persian. The original language here is Farsi. Yeah? Just want to make sure if everyone can see my screen. So just type a quick yes if you can see my screen, and so then we can continue. I'm saying Alhamdulillah, clear so far. Yes. Shaban saying, Imran saying yes. iPhone says yes. All right, so Alhamdulillah, you can see my screen. Now let's get into Masnavi. So close all these unnecessary things. Now, before I even dive into this, let me give you a little bit background of what is going on here. So the Masnavi is not written by him, but he is the one who spoke the words and his student wrote it down. So these words are spoken by Maulana Rumi but written down by his student. Yeah? So Maulana Rumi did not write down anything of the Masnavi. Zoom it out a little. What do you mean zoom it out a little? You mean zoom it in? Let's see if I can zoom in. No, it's not allowing me to zoom in. You mean like that? Okay, if you meant zoom in, they are zoomed in. All right, so let me give you the background, right? So I said Mathnawi is not written by Maulana Rum, it is spoken to by him, and it is written down by his students. Now, Mathnawi is called Mathnawi Ma'nawi. The original kitab is called Mathnawi Ma'nawi, the spiritual couplets. So Mathnawi means couplets, right? Couplets means poetry, and Mathnawi, Ma'nawi means spiritual, right? So spiritual couplets or the divine couplets or the couplets of essence, all of those meanings, right? I prefer to call it the divine couplets. The divine couplets. Why? Because I'll tell you why. So Maulana Rumi rahimahullah, Jalaluddin Rumi, his background, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. You can find a lot of his biographies. The internet is full of information, but I'm just going to give you what matters to you and what is important and what you should know, right? If you want to know more about Maulana Rum and Rumi, you can always research. You can always search the internet. You'll find enough answers. Okay, just to give you the context that I want to give you is the following. Maulana Rum was actually, before he became Rumi, he was actually a scholar of Islam, one of the greatest scholars of his time. So this is 800 years ago. 800 years ago, right? That's the time of Rumi. So Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi rahimahullah, his father was also one of the biggest scholars of Balkh, of that time of now known as Afghanistan, but they stayed in that area of Balkh, right? And his father was one of the greatest scholars of his time. And he was well known in the whole area of Balkh for his ilm and knowledge. So, you know, when you are such a knowledgeable person, so there's a lot of people that come to learn from you, right? So what happened there was the Sultan of that time, you know, people like to make fitna. Shaitan is always there to make fitna. He got, people came to the Sultan of that time and told that Maulana, that alim in your city, he's got a bigger gathering than yours, you know, and we fear that Maulana that alim is going to take over your leadership. So now the Sultan got worried for his leadership, and he was like, you know, he came to Rumi's father and he gave him the keys of the treasures and he said, you keep it, you know, indirectly telling him that you are already taken over my people, so you may as well keep the keys of my treasure because, you know, you are taking over me, so you might as well take over my treasures as well. So when Rumi's father faced the situation, he returned the keys back to the Sultan and said, you rule and lead your place, I am leaving. Now, and so it happened. The journey started. Maulana Rum's father, and Maulana Rum was a child at that time. They started the journey and they traveled from Balkh. And long story cut short, they ended up in a place called Konya, right? So obviously they went Mecca, Medina, Basra, Kufa, Baghdad, and all of those, Samarkand, and all of those places, and they stayed a few months in each town. So Maulana Rum, as a child, he picked up knowledge from all different parts of the Islamic world at that time, right? So his father finally, after years of traveling, they settled in a place called, today known as Kunya, but in that time it was called Rum. It was called Rum. That's why Maulana Rumi is known as Rumi, because of the place where he stayed in and he settled in. So Maulana Rum grew up in that place, and in the journey was a few years. So he grew up in the journey, also picking up knowledge from different scholars and ulama of his time. Finally, settling in Kunya, and that's where his father built the madrasa there, and there was a Islamic institute that was established by his father, and he was the Amir of the town, the city, and he was the head of the scholars of the place at that time, his father. After his father passed away, Maulana Rum was given the place of his father as the Grand Mufti of the area, of that place, of Kunya, or of Rum, you can say. So Maulana Rumi rahmahullah, in the beginning, he was a great scholar of Islam, and he had mastered all the sciences, all the ulum that was available, right? So any subject you pick up, Maulana Rum had written a book about it, and he had mastered it. Whether it's Nahu, whether it's Sarf, whether it's Balagha, whether it's Tafsir, whether it's Hadith, whether it's, whatever subject it was, fiqh, he was the greatest alim of his time. But here is where it gets interesting. All the ilm that is in the kutubs, right? And all the ilm, all the knowledge that you can acquire outwardly, right? Because there are two types of knowledge, ilmul wahabi and ilmul kasabi. So all the ulum that are kasabi are all the ulum that are available to you right now, right? You have all the books available to you right now. Now, this is all ilmul kasabi. You want to learn hadith, there is books of hadith. There is Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah. This is all physical ilm, right? Ilm that you can acquire externally, right? You sit in the company of a teacher and you learn, right, from the book, from the teacher. This is all externally acquired knowledge. Now, Maulana Rum, rahimahullah, he had studied and acquired external knowledge for more than 30 years of his life, right? So he was a master in fatawa, in masail, in tafsir, in balagha, in fiqh, in lugha, in every subject you may think of. Maulana Rum was the master of it all. But there is another ilm that is called ilmul wahabi, divine knowledge. Knowledge that is coming from a divine source, that is not present in the books. It is not found on the internet. It is not found externally. This knowledge comes internally, right? That's why it's called ilm al-wahab. In the Quran, Allah explains also, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهِ, right? Allah will teach you. When Allah teaches you, this is not ilm al-kasabi. You can't earn it. Now, Allah gives you direct, right? And then in the story of Musa and Khidr alayhi salam, isn't Allah tells us, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِن لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا, and we gave Khidr knowledge from our side directly. Yeah? So, ilmul ladunni you can call it, or ilm al-wahabi, you can call it. That is the knowledge that Maulana Rum was thirsty for and was eager to achieve. I mean, he had all the physical knowledge. He read all the books. He had all the hadith. He had all the tafasir. He had all the different ulum available to him. He learned everything. But yet there was something in him that was empty. Right? So he was in search of something that can fill that emptiness inside him. Now, so this feeling of emptiness, you can't fill it with any books or any knowledge or any whatever you may try to fill it with externally. The emptiness inside you can only be filled by what can fill it. Now, what can fill the emptiness? We're going to find out now. So, Maulana Rum, after studying so many years and teaching so many years and giving so many fatwa and doing all this work of deen for the last 40 years, he was in search of something that could fill the emptiness inside him. So when you search for something, Allah gives it to you, right? وَيَهْدِي إِلَيْهِ مَنْ أَنَابَ. So whoever searches and turns towards him, Allah guides him, right? So Allah guided him because he became a true searcher. Allah gave him what he was looking for. And when Allah teaches, he teaches in miraculous ways, right? Like how he taught Musa through Khidr alayhi salam. He taught Rumi through his teacher Shams Tabriz. So Allah sent Shams Tabriz. Now, who is Shams Tabriz? Shams Tabriz is the teacher of Maulana Rum, the spiritual teacher, right? So he taught him ilmul wahabi, or shall I say, not taught him, passed on to him the ilm, because you can't learn it, you need to receive it. So this is when Rumi meets Shams Tabriz and how they met and all those things that were discussed. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but Shams Tabriz rahimahullah was the one who introduced Rumi to the ilm al-wahabi, divine knowledge, or you can say ilm al-ladunni, ilm acquired directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Shams Tabriz introduced Maulana Rum on the path to how to receive this knowledge, right? Because you can't earn it. It's not something you're gonna get it. It's something you have to, we will give you the tools and then you have to discover it yourself. So Shams Tabriz rahimahullah gave Maulana Rum the tools, and then Maulana Rumi rahimahullah himself discovered it. And before him, many awliya existed. Many awliya Allah existed, right? There are many pious people who passed on before Maulana Rum, right? Like you will hear of Abdul Qadir Jilani rahimahullah. You will hear of Hassan al-Basri. You will hear of Junaid Baghdadi. You will hear of Bayezid Bastami. You will hear of Ja'far al-Sadiq. You will hear of Imam Baqir. You will hear of all these great awliya that existed before him, right? What makes Rumi unique from all of these awliya that existed before him and that came after him? So remember, Rumi, his time was 800 years ago. So there were many awliya that came before him, many awliya came after him. But why does history remember Rumi and not the others so much? Why is Rumi so famous? And why is he remembered throughout the ages and the others are not so much known and well known? There is a reason for that, right? Because all of the others, they reached the ultimate truth. They reached reality, the real truth, absolute truth. All of the awliya reached it. But most of them were not able to pass this knowledge down or collect it in any way, in any place. Or if they did collect it, it was lost over time. Now, so maybe the students that came after them didn't pay attention to those books, and then that knowledge was lost. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Rumi stands out. Okay, because those before him and those after him, their works were not preserved as his work was preserved. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is, and this is the one that I am more inclined to agree with, is that Rumi uses a universal language. So although Maulana Rum, rahimahullah, he is a Muslim, he is a Hanafi scholar, he is in his aqidah, he is Maturidi, and although he is all of these things, but when you read his poetry, it's not only for Muslims, it is universal. It is for whether you are a Christian, you can relate to his poetry. Whether you are a Jew, you can relate to his poetry. Whether you are a Hindu, you can relate to his poetry. Whatever you are an atheist, you can relate to Masnavi. So Masnavi is formed in such a way that Maulana Rum uses a universal language and addresses the human soul in a universal way. So everyone can relate to him and to his words, no matter which background you are coming from. That's why I feel that this work has survived all the centuries that has passed, and it has been the most accepted of collections when it comes to spirituality. And currently, in the time we live in, the most sold author in the West, in America and North America and all those places, in Europe, is Rumi. His poetry is the most sold book in all of those countries. Now, the reason for that is because his work and his writings relate to everyone, and it is universal in addressing everything and everyone. So because of that universal language that he uses, that's why he is famous throughout all the ages, and his work has survived through all these years and is the most famous spiritual poet of our time. So you will find here, as we start Masnavi, you will find that what Maulana Rum said 800 years ago is so relatable to us today. It's like Maulana Rum is here in our zamana and speaking to us in our time. That's how deep and universal his language is. So that's why I feel that this work has survived all these years. And another thing why I like Masnavi, right? Another reason why, if somebody was to ask me, after the Quran, which book do you think a person should study or should learn or should be taught? I would say after the Quran, for me personally, and this is my personal opinion, you may have your own, right? No arguments here, right? This is my personal opinion, and you are entitled to your own. For me, after the Quran, if there is any book that is worthy of being taught and being studied, it is Masnavi Ma'nawi. It is this Masnavi of Rumi that is being explained here. And after studying it myself, like for the last couple of years, after going through the whole Masnavi, it's 6 volumes, right? I understood the Quran better after going through Masnavi. I mean, there were things that Maulana Rum explained to me that I could not find in any other books. I could not find in any other tafsirs. I could not find from any of my teachers couldn't answer. You know, I found all answers to my questions regarding the Quran and the ayat of the Quran and the matters discussed in the Quran. I found the answers in Masnavi. He explained it so beautifully. Nah? So some people also say that if you want to read the Quran in Farsi, like if you want to read it in Farsi, you can read it in English. It's translated in English also. It's translated in all other languages. But if you want to read it in Farsi, read Mathnawi. It is just explaining and it is just the tafsir of the Quran. And I didn't believe that when I heard that statement that, you know, if you want to read the Quran in Farsi, read Mathnawi. So that was like, for me, it was like far-fetched, like what you're saying. The Quran is in Farsi now. So they said, no, the Quran is in Arabic. That's true. But if you want to understand the Quran in the Farsi language, then the Mathnawi is the closest thing you can get. So I was like, I'm going to test this out myself. So when I started on my journey to learn Mathnawi, I discovered that Mathnawi is in Farsi. And the only way for me to understand this Mathnawi is to know Farsi, right? I cannot rely on translations and tarjumas because the real essence is in the language itself. It's in Farsi itself. And the translations are just a mere poor efforts of trying to explain what is the real matan saying. So I went to learn Farsi. And I said, I need to learn Persian, right? Because I need to understand this book. So I spent 2 years. Can you imagine taking out 2 years of your life just to learn a language, just to understand a book? You know? I mean, it's a big task and it's a big ask. And if only you are seriously in search for the truth, you will go for this and you will do this, right? So I did it, alhamdulillah. And today, I understand Farsi. And when I understood Mathnawi in Farsi, and I read Mathnawi in the translations and in the other languages, I was like, what? What the translation is saying and what Rumi is saying is 2 different things. Right? It's totally like out of context, man. You need to know the language to understand the context of what is being said. So, if there's any language after Arabic that I have mastered, it is Farsi, it is Persian, right? It was a bit difficult for me in the beginning, but as I started learning Farsi, I realized that because I know Urdu and because I know Arabic, it was easy to catch on the words of Farsi because Urdu is, most of the words in Urdu are coming from Farsi, and most of the words in Farsi are in Arabic also, and Arabic and Farsi share a lot of similar words. Yeah? So Farsi actually came from Arabic originally. Arabic is the original language. Farsi came from there. So because I knew Arabic and Urdu, it was very easy for me to pick up Farsi. Yeah? And that's how, alhamdulillah, we learned it and we understood it. And now we can teach it to you as it's supposed to be taught. Yeah? So, Maulana Rum's main maqsad here, the purpose of why he wrote or why he told his student to write these couplets is for one reason and one reason only, is to take you back to your source, so that you, the ruh that you are now, you are separated from your source, right? And you are looking for a way to get back to source, to Allah, right? To where you came from. Rumi tells you how to get back there, and how to find that way, and how to go about it, and how to reach back to your source. That's the whole maqsad of Rumi, is to connect you back to your source. Yeah? And Maulana Rum, the whole Masnavi is only talking about two things, two main themes of Masnavi, right? After reading the whole of Masnavi, I concluded two main themes in the whole of Masnavi. One is that the only thing that stops you, or that is a barrier between you and source, between you and Allah, the only barrier is the nafs. The nafs meaning the ego, the false self. This is the only thing standing between you and between Allah. If you can know what is the ego and recognize that it's false, and whatever you have collected of information is all what people have told you, if you can get out of the culturescape, and if you can get out of what your forefathers have, brainwashed you with, and what media and what you call advertising has brainwashed you with, if you can get out of that ego and that false self of yours, once you realize that there is no ego, there is no nafs, it's just a made up thing of your mind, it's just a creation of your mind, it's a false self, it's a false you. Once you drop that veil and you drop that barrier, then you and Allah, between you and Allah, there is no barrier. So the only barrier is the ego, the nafs. That is the thing that is stopping you from reaching the source. And once you know that this nafs and shaitan plays along with it, shaitan and nafs, they are friends of each other, Once you know that these are your enemies, and you know how to break through those chains, between you and source, there is no barrier. Okay, that's the first theme of Masnavi. The whole of Masnavi, the same thing is said in different ways. Maulana Rum will bring different stories, different examples, different ways to explain to you the nafs and the evil self and the ego, and how it's your enemy, and how it works, and how to defeat it, and how to overcome it. Once you overcome that barrier, then between you and source, there is no one. Yeah? It's only your nafs that is standing in the way. And the second theme of Masnavi is basar, insight, enlightenment, right? Basar, basira, basara, can understand it as insight or intuition or inspiration, right? So I like to call it enlightenment. So what is enlightenment? See, you right now are in darkness. You don't know how to go to source, right? And there's this ego standing in front of you, and it's preventing you from going anywhere close to source. It's standing on all the ways, all the roads. Shaitan is everywhere, standing on all the roads between you and your source. Yeah? So if you are in darkness, the only thing you need to do is turn on the light, or acquire a light that can show you the way. Once you have light, which is basar, which is insight, which is intuition, which is inner light, I call it the eyes of the heart. Once you have those eyes open, you can find the way. Now, so two things: defeat the nafs, acquire the light. Then there is nothing between you and source. So Masnavi is all about those two things. And you will find all of these things that I mentioned in here are just to emphasize those 2 points. Faziri is saying, can doctor teach Farsi as a bonus? You know, guys, if I have to teach you Farsi, then this class will never end, you know? So I'm going to pass on that. But as we go along, I will read for you a bit of Farsi here and there, you know, just to get you a taste of what the language is all about, you know? But I won't be teaching Farsi because I want you to learn something which is more important, and that is how to get back to source. Yeah? So that is what I'll be teaching you. So after giving you the background of Masnavi, let's now dive into Masnavi itself. Everyone ready? Excited? Type for me yes in the chat. Let me see how excited you are. Everyone understood the introduction? Musa says yes. Abdul Sattar says yes. MashaAllah. Faziri says yes. Big yes. He's excited. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Oh, Imran is yes. He's super excited. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Love to see the excitement. Very excited. Mustafa is very excited. Over the moon. He's blushing also. Yusuf Taha, Alhamdulillah. Yes, he's very excited. Too good. All right, Alhamdulillah. Awesome. Let's get into it. So, what I've been teaching you yesterday and today is an introduction to get you into Masnavi, because this is where it starts. Right? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I'll just read for you the Farsi just to give you a taste of what Farsi sounds like. Normally, you can sing this, and or you can just read it as a normal, language. So I will sing for you a little bit, and I'll just read for you normally also. So, Bishnu enne ju hikayat ju shikayat mi kunat az judai ha hikayat mi kunat. So that is like one way of reading Farsi. You just read it like normal. And then you can sing this also. Vishnu enne ju hikayat mi kunat az judai ha hikayat mi kunat. So you can sing it, or you can just read it normally. Yeah? Right, so let's see where Maulana Rum starts off with and what is he trying to tell you. This is where he starts off with. So, I have the English tarjuma here just to make it easy for you to get it, but I will explain to you because the tarjuma is not enough to understand it. So listen to where see where he starts. He says, listen. So he starts with the word Bishnu, listen. Right? So the first thing he's trying to tell you is that stop speaking. Listen. Bishnu and ne. Ne. Ne is the reed. Reed is actually the flute, right? Flute. Also known as bansuri in Urdu. And it's the wooden musical instrument that is played with the breath, right? So you put it in your mouth and you play with it. Let me show you what it is. Flute. flute. With pictures. Let me type the word Basuri. Yes, so this is what it is. So this is a flute. Okay. Now I'm trying to find a picture of a person playing Bansuri. Bansuri in mouth. Right, so let's be a suitable image here. Okay. Let me pick this one. Let's just take the image of this child, right? Because it's more. Wait, now open up. Okay. Oh, there are many more pictures here. Very good. Let's find a suitable one. Yeah, that's fine. Or even this one. This one is more clear in trying to explain to you what I want to explain to you, basically. Now watch here. How do I zoom into this? So this is the flute. This is what Maulana Rumi is talking about. Now the flute is played with the breath. The breath blows into the mouth of the flute. It has a hole here. And then there are holes here at the other end where the fingers are placed, where the different tunes come out. So you blow into it and you play with your fingers, and that's how you play the flute. Now, what is Rumi trying to talk about? What is Rumi talking about? What does a flute got to do with ruh, with spirituality? So he's giving you, he's referring to the reed, the flute. The flute in this sentence here is actually the ruh, right? So he's saying, listen to this reed. And he's saying the reed is like the ruh. The ruh is like the reed. Now, why the ruh is like the reed, you can understand just now, right? Why the ruh is explained with a flute or a reed, you will understand just now. So he's saying, listen to this reed, and this ruh, listen to your ruh, how it is complaining. So, listen to this reed, this flute, how it's complaining. So, your ruh is the flute, and it is complaining. Listen to the complaint of the ruh. What it's complaining about? Telling a tale of separations. The ruh is complaining about being separated from its source. So remember the lesson in the beginning I was giving you? Ruh and source. So the ruh was part of the source, right? And then Allah decided He wants to manifest and He wants to bring it into a manifestation. And then He said, kun, right? He created Adam, and after creating Adam, He said, kun. He blew the soul into Adam. He blew His breath into Adam. So the breath, the ruh, was separated from the source, which is Allah. So when the breath became the word kun and went into Adam, it got separated from its source, which is Allah Himself. Now, Rumi is saying, listen to this reed, this ruh that is in you, listen to it, how it complains, telling a tale of separations. It is trying to tell you that I have been separated from my source. I was part of the source. And then an amr happened, kun, and I am separated from him. Now the soul is crying because it is separated from the source. And the soul wants to go back to the source, right? To understand this one line, the first line of Masnavi, you have to understand my first two lessons. Yesterday's lesson and today's lesson. They give you context of what Maulana Rumi is talking about. Now, to listen to your ruh, how it's complaining, telling a tale of separations. What it's trying to tell you, let's see what the ruh is saying. Now, before we continue, I'd like to add one more. I'd like to give you a bit more context of Maulana Rumi's Masnavi. The words Maulana Rumi spoke here, he spoke these words when he was in a divine unity with the source. And he would go into meditation, then he'd go into deep meditation, then he would go into a trance, and then he would go into a state of being. It's called wujud or wajd, right? It's a kind of a trance where you are no longer in your body. You become connected to your ruh, and your ruh is connecting to its source, right? That state is called wajd. So in that state, he said these words, the whole of Masnavi, and his student wrote it down, whatever he was saying. So what I'm trying to say is these are not just normal words of a normal writer. These are divine words, or you can say ilham, inspired words that are coming direct from the soul itself, right? The soul which is connected to the source. Just like how yesterday, and I sent you a recording in the group yesterday of the summary of yesterday's lesson. If you listen to that recording, you will find in the end, I tell you that I am not the one speaking to you, right? Because honestly, when I teach, it's not me that's teaching. Sometimes I say things I don't even know where they came from, right? Because it is Allah that is inspiring speech through me. I'm just the conveyor of the message that's coming through. Yeah? So here, Maulana Rumi is just conveying what is being inspired to him. And similarly, I'm conveying to you what is being inspired to me. That's why the other day, someone asked me, Maulana, can you give us notes? So I told him, there is no notes. I don't teach from any book or any notes, Another day, someone asked me, Maulana, which book are you teaching from? And I'm like, there's no book here. I don't have any book to teach from, It's all divinely inspired. Whatever is coming and as inspiration and ilham, that's what I'm passing on. Okay, Imran, I see you are crying there. It's fine, and it's not a problem. We will go back to the source, and we will get pure. Yeah? We are here to show you the way. Yeah? So, Bishnu wazne chu hikayat شکایت می کند از جدایی ها حکایت می کند. So listen to this reed, how it complains. The reed, I told you, it's the ruh. Now, if you just read Masnavi on your own, you will never know what is the reed. You will never know. You can read from now till Qiyamah. If you don't have a teacher explaining to you what is Rumi talking about, you will never get it for yourself. Listen to the soul, how it's complaining, telling a tale of separations, telling a tale of separation, the story of separation, how it was separated from its source, how the Amr came, kun, and the Ruh had to separate itself from its source and go into the body of Adam. Now, Rum continues. Kazniyasta mra babridand, dar nafiram mardozan nalidand. Saying, now the reed is saying, just check the comment here. Yes. The soul is saying, ever since I was parted from the reed bed, so the reed is saying, right? But actually, the actual thing that's speaking here is the ruh. But because now you can't understand the ruh speaking, so Maulana Rum uses an example to get the message to you. So the reed is saying that ever since I was parted from the reed bed is the source where you get the wood to make the reed, to make the flute from. So you go to the jungle of where this wood is, and you cut a piece of that wood and you separate it from the reed bed. So the reed bed is the source where you get that wooden stick to make your flute. So the reed is saying, ever since I was parted from the reed bed, indirectly Maulana Rumi is trying to tell you is, the Ruh is saying, ever since I was parted from the source, right? Ever since the Amr came and separated me from him, and couldn't happen, and I was in this human body, man and woman have moaned in unison with my lament. So man and woman both have moaned in unison with my lament. So I am complaining, and men and women have also been complaining with me, with my lament. But no one is trying to understand me, what I'm trying to tell them. They are crying, yes, they are mourning, yes, with me, but they're not understanding why I am mourning and what they are mourning on. So the Ruh says in Maulana Rumi uses the example of the reed, the flute. He says that the reed is saying, Sina khaham sharha sharha asfirak. I want such a bosom, such a chest, such a heart that is torn by severance. Now, firak here is separations. So I want that heart which has been separated from its beloved, right? Sharha, sharha, severely, severely separated. So, a person who has been through heartbreak and heartache and heart pain, only that person can understand what it feels like to be in a heartbreak. If you have never had a heartbreak, you can never understand what a heartbreak feels like, right? So the soul is saying, I want such a sina, such a chest, such a heart, such a bosom that is torn by severance, that is utterly broken into pieces and shattered, right? I want such a heart, because that heart will understand what it feels like to be separated. Subhanallah. Sina khaham sharha sharha asfirak, tabagoyam sharha darde ishtiyak. I want a bosom torn by severance. so that I may unfold to such a one, to such a heart, the pain of love desire. If you want to know and understand the pain of love desire, you need to be torn and shattered by pain. Only then will you understand what the pain of love desire is, what the pain of ishtiyaq is, what the pain of wanting to go back to the thing you are separated from. When the lover is separated from the beloved, only he can understand the pain that he goes through when he is separated from the beloved. So the soul is saying, I want such a bosom, such a heart, who has experienced extreme shattering and heartbreak and all those pains, so that I can relate to him and explain to him the pain of separation, the pain of desiring to go back, the pain of love desire. Powerful, powerful, powerful. You know, people just read this and they don't understand the depth of it. They don't understand the context here. They don't understand the pain that Rumi is trying to convey to you and make you understand. He's trying to tell you your soul is looking for such a heart that is severely torn by every way, broken into pieces and shattered. Only that person will understand what the soul wants to say. Continuing, he says, Har kisi ko dur maan das asl khwesh. Everyone who is left far from his source wishes back the time when he was united with it. So everyone that is separated from his asl, from his source, wants to go back, and he wants to go back to the time when he was united with it. So the soul is saying that everyone who is separated from his source, you know, you travel for some work, you leave your family behind, you know, you wish the time when you were united with it. You want to go back and join with your family and be with them, you know. So the soul is also saying the same thing, that everyone who is left far from his source wishes back the time when he was united with it. So your ruh is crying inside you, but you're not listening to it. He wants to go back, it wants to go back to its source. Only if you can listen. But the thing is, the soul is speaking, but not everyone is listening. That's why Rumi says, Man bahar jamaiyati nala shudam, juft bad hala wa khush hala shudam. In every company, I uttered my wailful notes. He's using the example of the flute. The flute says, in every company, I uttered my wailful notes, my painful notes, my sad notes. So the flute is playing, and it's playing the sad notes and the sad melody, right? And I consorted with the unhappy and with them that rejoice. So the flute is being played with those people who are unhappy, who are sad, and those people who are rejoicing. So the flute is being played. Happy people are listening to it. Sad people are listening to it, right? But the thing is, everyone is understanding the flute, the sound of the flute, according to his own opinion, according to his own condition. That's why Rumi says, हर किसी az zan khud shadyar man, az darun man najist asrar man. Everyone became my friend from his own opinion. So everyone listening to my notes, right? Listening to the notes of the flute, becoming the friend of the flute out of his own opinion. If he's in a happy condition, he's enjoying the notes in a different way. If someone is sad and heartbroken and all that, he's listening to the notes and he's getting a different feeling. Har kisi azzan khud shud yar man. Everyone became my friend from his own opinion. As darun man najust asrar man. None sought out my secrets from within me. So the Ruh is saying that I have been crying and my notes have been played and my cry has been played to happy people, to sad people. Everyone becomes my friend through his own opinion. No one has seeken out my secrets from within me. What am I trying to tell them? They're not listening. What they want to understand from my notes, that's what they are understanding. But my secrets, they're not trying to understand where I came from, what I want. Then Rumi says, Sirreman aznalay min dur neist. My secret is not far from my lament. Says here, my secret is not far from my plaint, from my complaint. The soul is saying, my secret is not far from my complaint. Meaning the notes that you are hearing, they are not far from the flute. The flute is right there. That's why you can hear the notes. So the notes are not far from the flute, right? Sirreman aznalae mandur neist. My secret is not far from my plaint, from my complaint. But the thing is, if you want to understand my secret, the secret of the soul, the secret of the reed, secret of the flute, then Lake Chasham Gosh Ra'an Nur neist, but the ears and the eyes lack the light whereby it should be apprehended. See, the ears and the eyes don't have the nur, don't have the essence to grasp the ruh. So with your physical eyes and with your physical ears, you can never grasp what the ruh is trying to tell you. Because the ruh is not in the physical world, is not in your physical space and time. It's non-physical, non-local, right? So if you want to understand the frequency of the ruh, you cannot understand it with your ears and eyes, because Gosh Ra'an Nur neist, your eyes and your ears, they don't have the nur that is needed to understand the soul. Powerful. My secret is not far from my plain, but the ear and the eye lack the light where it should be apprehended, whereby it should be apprehended. So Maulana Rumi is saying, you cannot understand the secret of the ruh with your eyes and your ears, meaning your physical body and your physical mind. It cannot comprehend the reality of the soul, the ruh. To reach the ruh and to understand the plea and the complaint of the ruh, you have to use another sense. What is it? He'll tell you just now. Then Maulana Rumi says, Tanzu jazatan mastur neist. Lek kisra deed jan dastur neist. Look, he says, body is not veiled from soul, nor soul from body. Look, your body and your soul are not veiled from each other. They are there together. Your body is here. You can see this is a physical you. Inside you, your ruh is there. You can experience it. You know it's there. That's why you are alive. But the thing is, yet none is permitted to see the soul. Permitted here is the wrong translation. The actual word here is dastur neist. So there isn't any way. Dastur means a way, a method of seeing the soul with the body. So although the body is not veiled from the soul, nor the soul veiled from the body, they are with each other. They are there with each other. But the body cannot see the soul. So the physical body cannot see the soul. Now, so this is explaining the verse of the Quran where Allah says, مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة. The misbah in this verse is the ruh. So the ruh is inside a zujaja, is inside a crystal. Right? الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري. The crystal itself is like a shining star. Yeah? So the ruh is inside there, it's here inside you, inside that crystal. Your body and your soul are not veiled from each other, but you don't have any way to see that soul physically. Okay? But there is a way you can see it. Masnavi Rumi will tell you a little later. He further continues, and I'll do 2 more lines and we will end there. He says that this, he goes back to the reed example and he says, Atishast in bang nai nist pad. Harka en atish nidar nist pad. The noise of the reed is fire. Now watch, he goes back to the reed. So the flute is playing, and you hear the sound of the flute, right? The sound of the reed. Saying this noise of the reed is fire. So this noise that you are hearing coming out from the flute, know very well that this noise is fire. It is not wind. So someone playing the flute will think that when you blow into the flute, the noise that comes out is the air that is being blown into it. Masnavi Rumi says, no, this noise coming out from the reed, it is fire, it is not wind. So in this line specifically, he goes to the flute and he uses it in a different way, in a different way. So what he's saying here, in this example, in this line, the reed is now the body, and the noise that is being produced by the reed, right, the air that produces the noise, he's saying that thing, that sound is not air, it is actually fire. So the reed here is now in this line only. In this example, it says the reed is the body, and through the body there is a noise coming out. That noise in a flute, it is air, but in your body, he is saying the noise of the reed is fire. So that ruh, right, it's not air, it's not wind, it's fire. And then he says, whoso hath not this fire, may he be not. If you don't have this fire in you, you don't exist. Because if the ruh is not in you, there is no you, right? Okay, another way to understand this is simple. A lot of people explain this, they don't explain it properly. See, fire. What is meant by fire is energy, right? If you analyze your body, everything in your body is functioning because of heat, right? Heat means energy. If you feel any part of your body that is functioning, it is hot, right? If we cut you open and we feel every organ that is functioning, the heart is hot, the lungs are hot, the kidneys are hot, the blood in you is hot. When you cut your finger, the blood comes out, the blood is hot. Everything in you is hot. The soul is from a fire element. right? It's not fire itself, but it's of that nature. Its heat, its energy, its power. It is not wind, it's not air. All right? So the noise of the reed is fire, it's not wind. And whoever does not have this fire, may he not exist. And last line for today. आतिश इश्क अस्त कांदरनी फताद. जोशिश इश्क अस्त कांदरनी फताद. It is the fire of love that is in the reed. So now he gets back to the fire. When he said the ruh is fire, what he's actually trying to tell you is that that fire is actually, it is the fire of love that is in the reed. So the fire that is in the ruh, it is the fire of love. The word used here is ishq, ishq, ishq. The word ishq from ashiqa, ashaqa, ishqan, ashaqan, it means intense love, right? Now, if you don't understand the concept of love, which Rumi is talking about, you can read the whole Masnavi and you will not understand it. People misuse Masnavi and they think that Rumi is talking about love between man and woman and husband and wife and boyfriend and girlfriend and ashik and mashuka and those things. Rumi is not talking about that love. Rumi is talking about a different, totally different type of love, right? So I'm going to explain this tomorrow in detail because it needs a whole explanation on its own. And today we have run out of time. So I'm just going to leave it here. I'm just going to translate it and leave it here. It is the fire of love that is in the reed. It is the fervor or the passion of love that is in the wine. So what does the wine got to do with love? And what does all this got to do with the ruh? I'll explain this line tomorrow, inshallah. Right, we will stop there for today and we will end it here. Any questions, any comments, any compliments? I would love to hear it. Let me give you a chance to